Conversational AI tools like ChatGPT are changing how we do a lot of things in life. Tasks that were previously performed by humans can now be done at the same level of quality, potentially even better, with technology through artificial intelligence and machine learning. Where is conversational AI going to have an impact in healthcare? Well, one very big problem to solve is this burden of mental health. And today on the show, I'm joined by Esha Oberoi, CEO and founder of Leora, a virtual self-care coach that provides mental health support that's judgment-free, discreet, accessible, always available, and hyper-personalised. So in this episode, we talk about this exciting area of digital avatars and building trust in health tech. We talk about the research behind Leora, clinically and from a design and user experience perspective. We talk about this enormous potential out there of large language models and cybersecurity and a lot more too. Collaboration starts with a conversation, Team Health Tech. Let's make it happen. This is Talking Health Tech with me, Peter Birch, featuring content and community about technology in healthcare.
Esha, it's been a while since we've spoken on the podcast. I actually can't remember how long it's been. It's been maybe a couple of years. So time flies. And for those that might not, we'll link it up in the show notes of this episode. But for those that didn't catch that, what were you doing back then? Remind me.
So I think that was just in the last part of COVID. And I just won an award. It was a Women in Digital or Tech Award.
Yep.
And hence we were on the podcast having a conversation about the year that had passed and how, I scaled Afia Care Services through the challenges of COVID. What I was also doing is really struggling to get our mental health and psychosocial clients in front of psychologists and psychiatrists. So I was starting the journey of immersing myself in the world of artificial intelligence and technology even more.
And so into the world of artificial intelligence now in that mental health space. So what does that translate into? What are you doing now?
I have been working on a really cool product, which I think is going to make a massive impact in the world of mental health and allow for individuals to have access to sort of some self-management mental health tools whilst they're waiting for to get, to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist.
So kind of that in-between thing, they're interesting. So a chatbot, did you say? Is that what it is?
Yeah. So Leora is a chatbot.
Yeah.
Leora is a artificial intelligent chatbot that can help individuals that have anxiety or depression effectively self-manage a bit of their condition in between therapeutic sessions. So that's what we've been building the last 6 months.
Amazing. So you're in that stage of come off the back of building and Leora. So why a chatbot? Like what have you learnt through building that, and who's that going to serve? Building a chatbot for mental health must be a really interesting journey.
Yeah. I think the next decade for us is going to translate into, it is going to be really the rise of conversational AI. We know that. This is something that, the last 5 years, a lot of the large tech businesses and players in the world globally have significantly invested in. And we'll talk a little bit about ChatGPT later on and the investment there and what that could mean, for businesses and industries. But I think for me, why I was curious and interested in chatbot technologies, because I think it provides an opportunity for a user to engage in a different way. So for a long time now, we have had access to ECBT tools, so cognitive behavior therapy tools or programs or digital mental health programs, but we know that they're not that engaging, they're not that interesting, and they heavily rely on an individual to be incredibly self-motivated to finish an online program. So this was sort of taking those digital solutions to the next level and using almost, the conversational AI, the avatar, to bring about an increase in engagement and stickiness. So we have and can show, hopefully over time, that the user actually finishes a program through the connection that they create with the avatar.
Yeah. And so chatting with the avatar, so that's Leora, right? So if I was using the tool, I'd be on my phone and then chatting with Leora, a digital avatar. You've used that term avatar a couple of times. Talk to me a bit more about, building Leora, the other virtual person, the chatbot that I'm sharing my thoughts with.
Yeah, absolutely. This has been quite an insightful journey for us in the startups phase of Leora. So Leora initially was a digital human, and that was my vision of what I felt I could and wanted to connect with. Like I thought, if I'm talking to someone, I want to talk to someone who's as real as possible. Yeah. But interestingly, so at that time, I remember this was about 6 months ago, I was in India on a meditation retreat. And we started to do some user testing here locally for the Australian market to see how people respond to different types of avatars. So we had sort of three sort of different depictions. We had the very much human-like digital human. We had some animated characters, and then we also had some animals like cute koalas. Even the quokka, is it the quokka or?
The quokka.
Yeah, the quokka, which is like the happiest animal.
Yeah.
So we were looking at all of these different sort of characters to see, what is the character that people respond to and can build rapport with, right? Because that trust and rapport is so, so crucial in this tool. And what we discovered through that user testing and that user journey, understanding the user journey, was the Australian users felt repulsed and disgusted by a digital human. So it created what we know as the phenomena of the uncanny valley, which is the digital human is so human-like that it actually is a deterrent for an individual, and they don't feel connected to it. And whereas, because I was in India, and I do this all the time whenever I've got an idea, is I ask, I'm very curious to know what people think. So I took the opportunity even in India to find out how users in India with people with mental health, depression and anxiety would respond to an avatar. And funnily enough, the Indian market loved the digital human, and they didn't feel connected to something that was animated or animal-like. So anyway, just a little point on localization and how crucial that becomes as well. So eventually Leora now, if you look at her now, she's animated. We've looked at we've taken a lot of feedback, and we know that little things like the eyes being proportionately larger on the face create a level of trust in users. So if you look at Leora now, she's incredibly different to what she started off as, but we're much more confident because of the feedback that we've received from our sort of local market where we are establishing that this is what users want.
Yeah. That's interesting that we've talked so much about, that design stage based on what users like, and it's not so much, you've not mentioned anything about what the avatar is saying or doing or how they're acting or anything. It's how they're perceived and how someone feels about sharing anything there. So that sounds like, and that is such an important aspect of any healthcare design, like solutions, is the design phase, understanding what users want, and whether that's the patients or whatever the situation is, that can make such a huge difference, it sounds like.
Yes, massively. We are creating trust through a visual representation, and that is something that I think really cannot be dismissed when we're looking at conversational AI agents, especially in health technology.
And you mentioned India as well, and different localization, and it's interesting thinking about different styles of healthcare too, and the more traditional Western and Eastern styles of care. Has that kind of worked its way into your thinking around building Leora? Yeah,
absolutely. So as a person who has had, my own lived journey around mental health and I've consistently relied on therapists. I consistently have. I'm actually very proud of it. I think that it's made me a better human being, and it's allowed me to have another perspective, constantly a sounding board, so I can keep on, improving as an individual. So for me personally, and I think this is now coming out in the vision of Leora, is I have blended in my mental health journey the right ratio of Western science and Western psychology with Eastern philosophy. And time again, I've seen a lot of people in my network rely on the blend of both, like the mixture of using different therapy techniques at different points in their life. I think there's also enough research now to suggest that meditation and mindfulness techniques really do help individuals with anxiety and depression, because Western psychology is a huge focus on mind, whereas Eastern wisdom brings in not just the mind, but it really looks at your whole connection to nature, to your soul, and to your energy. And we are energy beings. So it's really bringing in that whole holistic look at physical, mental, emotional regulation. And so the mix of both those therapeutic techniques is really what I actually think that this could be a huge differentiation for Leora as well as we continue to develop it.
And that'll certainly appeal to, has the potential to appeal to a broad audience too, of people who might feel that whether it's the treatments they've received or the way they've engaged with the healthcare system generally, maybe they want something more or something different that is still backed in evidence and it's effective and has that, in the end, the outcomes that people want. And particularly in a mental health space where, the system, it's under pressure and we need more tools and ways to make it more efficient and effective, because in its current form of patients physically coming in and speaking to somebody, it's not going to continue to scale at a rate that we need it. So it's an interesting time to be doing, it's the right time to be doing something like this, for sure.
Yes, and the positive thing is that there's enough work that's also already been done in sort of bringing in Western psychology and Eastern philosophy. So a lot of the exercises that we're building into Leora are backed on acceptance and commitment therapy techniques. So we are using clinical techniques in ensuring that, as we continue to build the app, there is going to be clinical efficacy. So in fact, over the next sort of 7 to 10 days, we're hoping to release our first peer-reviewed paper independently done by the University of Sydney to start to really showcase and position Leora as an option, as an alternative, but also as like a complementary digital tool that can be used to really accelerate someone's mental health or improve it, whilst they're also leaning on obviously the human-led support.
And just to lean in a little bit more and think about the type of people who will really tend towards engaging with Leora and using the tool, what kind of demographics are you really thinking will be the people who will be most attracted to using it? We've got the younger generation coming through that are used to it, or is there an older demographic? What does it look like?
Yeah, I think given how early we are in the development of Leora, I'm really conscious of sort of being overconfident in who we think we want to, who will use Leora, but just going on the back of like any experience with any other technology, we know that, the early adopters are the younger generation and they just have a stronger affinity to technology. So our assumption sort of at this stage is really, sort of 25 to 35 age group. And I think the more clinical evidence and efficacy we bring into the product, we would start to feel more confident to also cater to the younger demographics. But I'm actually quite mindful of that because, there are a lot of risks around technology, and what we don't want to do is create a dependency. So, that's one of the key risks around any app usage, and that's the dependency. And I think that the more sort of life experience we've got, more maturity we've got, and other things that sort of consume our life, the less risk there is that we end up spending tons and tons of time on technology. Yeah.
And, this is coming to light as people start to use Leora and everything. It's coming at an interesting time where, everyone's talking about ChatGPT. We're not even recording this podcast episode in real life. ChatGPT just talking. No, it's, it does everything, right? Apparently. It's like, that's just what's going to happen and there'll be no use for any humans anymore ever, apparently. Well, maybe not that extreme. But it's made a lot. It's captured a lot of attention, seeing how sophisticated these types of technology can be. How do you think about, something like ChatGPT as you're, launching Leora?
I am so excited about ChatGPT and the technology, this innovation. And so this is going to be a long answer, and I'll start from really providing the context around the intelligence, the artificial intelligence, and then the potential and how limitless this is. So if we think about how we learn, right, and evolve as human beings, when as children, we learn through our parents and our teachers. And there are two main concepts, right? There's the concept of supervised learning and unsupervised learning. And when we're learning through the knowledge share from our teachers and parents, we're learning through labeling, right? Labeling and classification effectively. As we start to move through life, we learn through observation and self-learning and experiences. And this is really what artificial intelligence is. It's effectively replicating the human brain by creating these neural energy connections artificially. The difference is that our human brain over the course of our life can only consume so much, right?
Yes.
And we know that there are limits. However, with artificial intelligence, the more neural connections we create, the neural network, the more intelligent this becomes. So the potential, and I use that word again, it's effectively limitless. And we've seen the acceleration of this technology just from the first, I think OpenAI was founded in 2015, the first $1 billion invested, and then sort of over the course of that time to now, the GPT-3 is incredible. It's built on 175 billion parameters, which is those neural connections, and over 40 trillion sentences. It's phenomenal the amount of data it can hold and then respond to. So yes, I think, on the back of that, the next 5 years, we're going to absolutely see certain industries adopt that are more creative industries like marketing, journalism, because there's less risk in being able to lean on this technology to be able to produce content, imagery, design in really, really quick ways. And then I think there's certainly an appetite in health now, and our consumers are becoming more and more sophisticated. They want to have a better experience even when they're consuming health services. So I believe as long as we ensure that we are managing the risk, right, and we go in with this zero trust mindset, and I think that's how we should be looking at technology, especially like ChatGPT, is it's built on a whole huge set of data. As health businesses, we can leverage that, but obviously we would need to fine tune it for our business case, for our businesses. But we go in with sort of zero trust as a business and as well as a user, and then build all of the parameters or the infrastructure, the scaffolding we need to ensure that we mitigate any risks that can come from using this technology.
I think you're definitely onto something there, and it comes back to this point around artificial intelligence and healthcare that's been discussed long before all the hype of ChatGPT specifically, which is if the AI is operating in this black box that no one really knows how it comes up with these, the outcome that it spits out from a clinician's point of view or from a patient's perspective, someone that's banking a lot of trust on and a lot is at stake here in terms of what's coming out of it, in terms of its recommendations or whatever it's the results. If we don't actually know how it's come up with that or that, trust that it's backed by, peer-reviewed studies or whatever it might be, that might be good in some of those industries, as you say, that have that low risk and tolerance and everything. But in healthcare, there's a lot more to it, and there's a lot more trust that needs to be built in order for it to be a tool that's used and that is effective in a healthcare setting too. So yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where, so that supervised learning and the human intervention. So really the human trainers that are fine tuning, say as an example, if we were to use ChatGPT, which is the largest language model, so we would want to leverage it. I think a lot of businesses would. You would fine tune it and ensure that there's the right clinical contribution, right, to ensure that so you're effectively simulating the chatbot and the user for a period of time, and then so training the bot in that way. But then effectively any technology, if it's to scale, would benefit from its own learning as well, and it will keep doing that. So there will be that unsupervised learning process that chatbot goes through, and it will then learn through user inferences, so user input.
Yeah.
And the more people that interact with it, the smarter it will get over time.
Fascinating. And so thinking back to then Leora and looking ahead and your priorities and where you're at, how can the community support you in terms of building this out? What are you looking for now? And also what might we look forward to from seeing from Leora over the next, say, 6, 12, 24 months?
So Leora, in terms of this business, has massive potential. So I absolutely don't think that I can do this alone. I'm so open to collaboration and partnership within industry, and also funding. Like, this requires a huge amount of data. It requires a huge amount of computing power to really scale it to the level that we want, where it can produce massive global impact. So I'm quite open to like any ideas, or anyone who thinks this is interesting and wants to partner and collaborate, reach out. I'm more than open to conversations.
Amazing. Well, Esha, we'll put the details for Leora in the show notes of this episode, and no doubt we'll engage in summits and everything as a THC Plus member. It's great to have you in the community as well. So looking forward to watching as Leora builds out and hopefully helps a lot of people too. So thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
For more content and community about technology and healthcare, visit talkinghealthtech.com.